What's up, guys? Big Clive 34 coming at you today with Cars and Clive, the antidote for your automotive hangover. And today we're coming straight off Holly LS Fest. I am senile because I've had like no sleep, but I really wanted to get this out today, stay on schedule, keep delivering Cars and Clive to you guys every Monday at 4 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, so like 1-ish if you're on the West Coast. So yeah, like I said, fresh off Holly LS Fest, and I've got the shirt to prove it. But you know what? Speaking of shirts, the new hoodies, the Gear logo hoodies, they're in our store now. You guys have been eating this up. Like everyone seems to love this design. I think it's awesome to see people walking around with this Gear logo, because this logo means a lot to me. So yeah, anyway, let's get on with the point of this video. So today we're going to be talking about something that gets asked quite a lot. I kind of took one of the questions that is very common and spun it around to kind of give it a more broad kind of meaning and give you guys some more background on exactly where it is that I came from. So quite often people ask me, Clive, do you miss the GTO? That was kind of the car that made this channel originally. I had a 2005 GTO. If you weren't around then, that's fine. I completely understand. I know we're gaining a lot of traction here with a lot of new subscribers, but if you didn't know, I had a 2005 GTO. When I turned 18, I bought that car in cash with money that I had earned myself. I was so proud of it. It was the first like decent car that I bought. And then 2.5 years later, I hydroplaned it into a wall, which kind of sucked. So people ask me if I miss it all the time, and the quick answer is yes, but the long answer will tell you a lot more about some of the other cars I've had too. So today I'm going to be qualifying the cars that I've owned, top 5 in terms of the best and the worst, and I think I've only owned 5 muscle cars. This list will only span the muscle cars. I think that altogether, I switch cars a lot. I've probably had like 20 to 30 cars, probably north of that if you consider all the cars that I've actually bought to sell, because I used to buy and sell cars before, you know, I went to school and all that stuff. And while I was in school to make some extra money, that's how I bought the GTO actually. So we're going to be just talking about the fun cars that I've had. So without further ado, let's get into the list. Number 1, of course, it's really a no-brainer, the C6Z06. I wouldn't sit here and go on and on about it, but you guys know how awesome these cars can be, and how much, you know, how much I like this thing, how much, you know, I bitch about it a lot, but I really do like it. If you guys want to hear more about this car, actually, I'll throw a link up here to a video that I made on the 1 year of owning this. It was about a year later, and I made a video all about all of the ins and outs of the cars and what's working and what's not. I also did a thing, 10 things I hate about the car, which really caught some flack. But either way, there's that there. This car is number 1, but we're not really going to talk much about it because you can't compare a $40-ish thousand car to a bunch of like $10, $15, $20,000 cars. It's just not a fair comparison. So number 2 would kind of really be where the list starts, and number 2 is definitely my GTO. Like I said, I had a 05 Pontiac GTO. It didn't really have much done to it. It was just kind of, it had muffler deletes, so it sounded good. It performed like a stock car would, and that was about it. It wasn't the fastest in the world. It wasn't the best handling in the world. It was heavy. Well, you got to realize when you get into a GTO, it's a touring car. It was relatively fast for the time being. You know, I couldn't compete with a lot of my friends, but it was quick. It was fun. I liked it. They're very comfortable cars. The weight brings a great ride. They do make good power, but in the long run, it just wouldn't have been very fast unless you threw a ton of power at it to get it moving. You know, that heavy, I mean, this has independent rear suspension too, but all that weight, independent rear suspension, and it's just, you know, it would have taken a good bit of work to get that amount of weight moving through a 6-speed manual too, nonetheless. So the GTO was definitely number 2, and I really enjoyed that car. So moving more towards the worst end of the spectrum, number 3 is actually going to be my first car. I had a 2001 Pontiac Grand Prix GTP. This was way back in the day. Like, the very first videos on this channel were of this car, and I enjoyed the car, but I was young and dumb and didn't really know much about anything, so I made a stupid decision. I'll talk about the stupid decision in a minute. But the car, you know, supercharged, 3.8 liter. It's really a great platform. Again, a quick car, not a super fast car, but it did what it was supposed to do very well. It was a sporty sedan, and it was quick for my first car. I had a system in it, because back in the day I was into systems, so it sounded good. It had an exhaust on it. I had a ram air hood. I just had a couple things done to it, and at the end of the day, I traded it for the next car on the list, which was a very big toss-up for the worst with the car that actually is the worst, but this is the next to worst car. Moving on to number 4, and the next to worst car is a Pontiac Trans Am that I had. It was a 1993. I kind of had a racer phase back in the day, maybe a little bit. I'm lying to you. I was a complete racer, and I'll admit it. Traded my Grand Prix for the Trans Am, which was worth a lot less money, and to be honest, it was just not as nice of a car. The interior, it was an F-body interior. I'm a firm believer that F-body interiors aren't actually as bad as everybody claims that they are, but this F-body interior, it was the first year that they made the 4th gen, and it was just old, rickety, falling apart. The guy that I bought it off of was a bigger dude, so I don't know if it was him or just like the car getting abused, but the driver's seat was like falling apart. The interior was falling to pieces. It was my first manual, my first V8. The reason I didn't get a V8 in the first place is because when I was 16, my parents were like, dude, no way, you're not getting a V8, not paying the insurance, and you'll probably go out there and kill yourself. But after driving around that V6 for all of 6 or 7 months, I guess, I decided I wanted a V8, and it just happened, I guess. I don't really remember the details. I traded up and got this shiny red rear-wheel drive sports car that made less power, actually, and was worth a lot less money because it was way older and it had more miles on it, I think, but I wanted a V8 sports car, so it happened. Looking back on it, that probably wasn't the best trade I ever made in my life, but then again, I mean, can't cry over spilled milk at this point. Whatever, is what it is. I'm happy with what I have now, so don't really care. Anyways, that car, I went ahead, because I didn't really have that much money at the time, again, I converted the front end. It was pretty clean up front, and I decided I want to put the LS1 style front end pieces on it and make it more like an LS1 car. So I went ahead and, with the help, a lot of help from my dad, did that. And on my way to get it painted, I ran into a deep puddle and the OptiSpark took a shit. And if you don't know what that is, a quick Google search will tell you that basically if you hit a puddle in one of those cars, you're pretty much fucked. That leads us to the worst car on this list, number 5, the worst car I've ever owned. This isn't necessarily the worst car in the world. It's just probably my least favorite. I mean, honestly, I wouldn't take the Trans Am over this car, but for the amount of money I spent for it, I feel like it was the biggest letdown, the biggest kind of disappointment. I'm talking, of course, if you have followed the channel, you probably already have this figured out, but I'm talking, of course, of the Cadillac cts-v. It wasn't a 2nd gen, so hold your guns, don't shoot me yet. It was a 1st gen cts-v, a 2004. There wasn't really anything wrong with the car. It felt like they tried really not very hard, and they kind of completely missed the mark on what the car should have been. Where I think this was where Cadillac was kind of just first getting into the idea of a luxury performance car, and basically what they did was they took a stock CTS, changed over the interior a little bit, threw some different ground effects on it, threw a front bumper and a different grille, and slapped an LS6 in it with a T56 and called it a day. And you could really tell. I guess you could say that I didn't really do my research enough, but I kind of wasn't prepared for what I got. The rear end in the car, as in all 1st gen cts-vs, complete junk. The interior on the car, also pretty bad. It wasn't complete junk. It's a step up over an F-body, but it was pretty bad. Pretty much the entire car, except for the LS6 and the T56, was kind of bad. I mean, even the T56 had a very, very sloppy shifter. I think that the car does have a great amount of potential, but they just really, really missed the mark. And in order to bring the car up to where it should be, you have to spend a lot of money. So at that point, you might as well just buy a V2, because, you know, the V1s hold value pretty well. They're like, I think, $15,000 to $18,000. And then for high 20s, you can buy a V2. And by the time you get a V1 to where it should be performing, to where you're comfortable to drive it, and it makes good power, you're going to basically almost be at a V2 anyway. So there you have it, from favorite to least favorite: C6Z, GTO, Grand Prix, Trans Am, and of course, V1 cts-v. So comment below and let me know what you guys think of this list. Tell me what your least favorite car that you have ever owned is and why it was so terrible. A reminder, check out the store, bigclimb34.com/store, for the new gear design and the OG. If you're new here, thank you for watching. I invite you to smack that subscribe button if you enjoyed yourself during this video. It was good meeting a lot of you at LS Fest, by the way. That's about all I got for this week. This has been Cars and Climb. Be on the lookout for LS Fest footage all this week and the upcoming weeks, in addition to Cars and Climb next Monday at 4 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. It's been real, guys. Until next time. I think it's time to, we should drop the gear and disappear. What do you think? So I park out in the back of the parking lot. There was nobody around me. Nobody. There's so many possible spots. But Mr. 97 Kids and his goddamn Toyota minivan had to park right next to me. So this is how you have to park